Our players have worked extremely hard over 8 practices, and I think that there's a different excitement here, and it's real, it's genuine, because of hard work. We all understand that it means nothing right now, but we have to lay the right foundation, and I think our players have done that. I am really excited about our players. I think we got a good young rookie class that I think will surprise some people. And our veterans guys are outstanding leaders. And so we got a good mix of older guys that have been there, done that, and younger guys that I think with untapped potential that are just kind of wide-eyed. And I think Emmanuel has been outstanding in practice. I think Joe Schobert has been outstanding in practice. And when you get that kind of quality, you look at him and you go, oh boy, oh boy, you know, oh boy.
You gotta like it when Ray Horton said, oh boy. Nathan, start with you, your biggest takeaway thus far.
Well, on this defensive side of the ball, I think this offensive linebacker core, that's the key in a 3-4 defense. You have to be able to get to the quarterback, and it was a priority in the draft. Emmanuel Ogbah, pick number 32. Then you get Joe Schobert later on. The two of them combined more than 20 sacks last year. And I like what Nate Orchard did at the end of last year. And the thing that really stands out to me is when we talked to Paul Kruger, he's excited because he knows he's going to get used how he wants to be used. And he's excited to go to work, and he's a guy with double-digit sack potential as well.
Absolutely, and I think it's a very good mix of old and new. You talked about Kruger, you know, not like Orchard is old, but Barkevius Mingo's another guy. Demario Davis is now going into his 5th year. And then you add the new guys, and they're all going to be wrinkles. And essentially for Ray Horton, as he kind of talked about, they're going to be bullets in his gun. Because in the 3-4 defense, the nose tackle is the stalwart in the middle, and the diversity of those outside and inside linebackers, you never really know who's coming, so you keep an offense guessing.
Also during this week's OTAs, Browns alumni, including living legend Bernie Kosar, spoke to the team. Some extra motivation for sure. Yeah. Here's the head coach Hugh Jackson on the impact the Browns alumni having on this young roster.
And I'm sure you guys have seen that's the reason why I've had the alumni out a lot, because I want our guys to connect the right way and truly understand that there was a lot of men before them who've played the game here, who loved playing the game here, who won here. And so it's not a question if it can be done. It's just that we have to do the hard work in order to have it be done.
Matt, what's the impact on having alumni around the team?
It's great, and I think for guys, especially as this team continues to get younger, to dive into the history. Because when you dive into the history, you learn a lot about what they've been through and why this fan base is so passionate, and the Dawg Pound is the Dawg Pound. So I think the sooner that you can do it and grasp on to what this city and how the city gets behind a winner, you're chomping at the bit to go out and prove to your fan base and the Dawg Pound that we want to win not only for ourselves, but we want to win for you.
Yeah, Hugh Jackson's pushing all the right buttons.
Right.
I mean, in this town, these alumni are revered, and there's been the perception that they haven't been integrated like perhaps they should be. And so to have Bernie out at practice and Bob Golick and Hanford Dixon, along with Kevin Mack, who works for the Browns, all those guys out there talking to the players, and you know, Corey Coleman's wearing number 19 with Bernie.
Yeah, right.
And Bernie told him, all I want to see is that number 19 in the end zone all season long. So it's great to see. Yeah, we all want to see that. Indeed.
Your best alumni story.
My best alumni story was just being out in San Diego and meeting Dan Fouts, you know, and what he is, and Ron Mix. You know, these Hall of Fame guys, you know, walking out to watch me or us practice. It was very humbling, and it really made me go off the field and dive into the Chargers' history so I could better understand it. And we can just hope that the Browns, these young Browns, are doing the same thing about the past.
You mentioned the Chargers. We're going to be talking about the San Diego Chargers coming up. But it's like a who's who visiting with the team right now. Hall of Famer Jim Brown was at the charity golf outing. And another famous Browns alum hanging out at OTAs, Ernest Biner, the great, helping out with the running backs on the practice field. Here's Hugh on what it means to have Biner around the team.
Ernest has a very passionate place, you know, about the city, about the football team, about playing the position. And I've known Ernest for a while. He's a tremendous coach when he's coached in this league. He knows how to communicate with young men, and they can see the picture that he's painting. And he's been very good for me because he'll see things sometime that maybe I don't see. And it's not like me to be at home and all of a sudden here comes 3 or 4 texts from Ernest, you know, about something. But he's been outstanding. And the thing that I really respect about him is he's really a true Cleveland Brown. You know, he gets it, and he knows exactly what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish.
Hugh said right there he gets it. What else does he bring to this team right now?
Well, you think about the Browns running backs, right? You've got Crow and you've got Duke. You've got a tandem that's got to be able to work together.
Sure.
Who better to talk about that than Biner, who was with Kevin Mack? He can talk about what it's like to kind of be supportive but also be in competition, working together in the backfield. And then you look at Kirby Wilson. So between Wilson and Biner, you have so much experience for these young running backs, telling them how to be successful at this level. I think it's a great thing for Crow and for Duke Johnson.
It definitely is, and don't discount Rock Cartwright, another guy, you know, who's added this year with Hugh Jackson and his staff, played a long time in the NFL.
Still in
good
shape, Rock
Still
Cartwright.
in very good shape. So the combination of Kirby Wilson, Ernest Biner, and Rock Cartwright, they all bring experience. Kirby, of course, working with Adrian Peterson, one of the best in the business, probably a future Hall of Famer as well. And I even had an opportunity at OTA to stand by the running back because you walk out and they're working right there. And Ernest jumps right in there, still in very good shape, and shows these guys, which sometimes is very difficult for a coach. You know, it's like they can tell you, but can they show you? And I think Ernest does a great job of jumping right in, interjecting, and showing these guys what he expects.
And you talked about the alumni and diving into the history for the Chargers. When you saw Ernest Biner look in the camera and apologize in Cleveland, I mean, as a Cleveland sports fan, there were probably tears in a lot of people's eyes. And he can tell these guys, this is what it means to this city. This is what it means to me. Let's go out there and win. That's what Hugh Jackson wants. Chase greatness every day.
I'll tell you what, that was powerful stuff. Seeing Ernest on camera telling basically the entire world that, hey, look, I'm sorry, I apologize. And I'll tell you what, when you hear that from him, what kind of impact does it have on the young players when they understand? Because a lot of these guys come in, they don't necessarily understand the history of Cleveland and what they've gone through. What kind of sense do they get when they hear a guy or hear from a guy like Ernest?
I think it's got to be important. And you talked about it when the legends came out for you.
Absolutely. I think there's a hunger, you know, between that a fan base has and that Cleveland has always has that has been deviated, you know, in a very different direction for the last decade, or at least since they've come back the last 15 years. And I think Hugh Jackson's early emphasis on these things is bridging that gap and building that belief. And so not only is this team chasing greatness, but the city, as we see with the Cavs, and Hugh Jackson and these Cleveland Browns are chasing greatness on a daily basis.
I think you got to like what's going on right now, Browns OTAs. And now that the OTAs are over, the team's looking ahead to mandatory minicamp. The 3-day camp begins on Tuesday. Kind of the final tune-up before training camp in July. What do you guys expect to see this week?
Well, this is the last opportunity for these guys to slot themselves on the depth chart before they go into training camp and the real competition begins. So I expect to see 3 days where these guys lay it all out on the field. They've got everything, you know, all the time off after that, but they've learned the playbook now. Now it's starting to find out what are we best at, and for guys to show what they're best at and how they can help this team win.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, Hugh Jackson, of course, gave the guys off Thursday to participate in the Browns Foundation golf outing, and so there's going to be some makeup time. And I think Hugh Jackson probably has an agenda, as we consistently talk about on Cleveland Browns Daily, of what he wants this team to look like and what he wants his offense to function like at this certain point in the offseason so that he can start training camp at that certain level without significantly drop off, you know, of players losing some of what they've gained. So I think they've got a lot to prove, and don't be surprised if he pushes 2.5 hours of practice on the field to get everything that he wants accomplished in those 3 days.
You got an update on Gary Barnidge.
Gary, he had a sports hernia surgery.
Yes.
He will be back for training camp. They figured it was something they'd take care of now as opposed to later. But big play Gary is going to be just fine. But I think you talked about something to keep an eye on in minicamp now. With Barnidge out, can E.J. Bibbs, we saw him on Inside the Cleveland Browns, not a roller coaster man, but can he be a big pass catcher for this team? A guy who has great hands, very soft hands, natural mover out there. Where does Randall Telfer fit in? Seth DeValve, who you brought in as kind of a move tight end, they're going to get more and more reps. And I think Bibbs has a chance right here to say, look, I deserve to be on this 53-man roster. I think these are 3 big days for E.J. Bibbs.
All right, good to hear that Gary Barnidge is expected to be back for training camp. That's great. Of course, he led the team in receptions, receiving yards, 9 touchdowns last season, Pro Bowl season. Still ahead on Dawg Pound Report. We'll get the latest about one of the Browns' opponents this season, the San Diego Chargers. Plus, we've got some position battle debates that's coming up after a quick timeout here on News Channel 5. You're watching the Dawg Pound Report. Back here on Dawg Pound Report, Hakeem Dermish, Nathan Zagura, Matt Wilhelm here with you. Thanks for staying with us. Time now to learn more about one of the Browns' opponents this season, San Diego Chargers. The Chargers and the Browns meet up in Week 16. We caught up with Jordan Beane to get a sense of where San Diego is as a team. Here's what he had to say about the team coming out of OTAs.
Well, I think this team has settled right in OTAs for 2016 and is looking, I think, hungry right now would probably be the best word. You have a bunch of players that were on this roster from 2015, clearly disappointed by their performance, but they put that in the past. As soon as they had their first team meeting, 2015 was in the rearview mirror, and all eyes were looking forward towards 2016. And when you have a leader like Phillip Rivers, when you have somebody like Jason Verrett, Pro Bowler from last year, on the defensive side of the ball, looking to take more of a leadership position, along with other players like Manti Te'o and Keenan Allen, I think that the OTAs have been really spirited. Guys going on up against each other one-on-one, trying to get each other to be better each and every day. The other day, Phillip Rivers threw a pass during a 7-on-7 drill that was intercepted by Jason Verrett. The next play goes right back at Jason Verrett and gets a completion to Keenan Allen. So there is already, even though it is only May and June, there's a lot of spirited competition out there here in San Diego.
Jordan, thanks. Matt, just your initial impressions of San Diego and what they did last year. 4-12 team. They picked number 3 in the draft. Just your impressions of this team coming into this season.
Well, it's kind of been a change of the guard in the AFC West. Realistically, from when I played out in San Diego, it's like, you know, we were winning the AFC West consistently. You know, Denver would give us a run for our money. The Oakland Raiders were the whipping boy. Kansas City was kind of lost in the shuffle. Well, the Denver Broncos just won a Super Bowl. They have questions at quarterback, but they've got a great defense in Wade Phillips. You look at what the Oakland Raiders have done via the draft. They're now ready to compete for that division. And Kansas City with Andy Reid has been competitive every year. And now the Chargers are in the cellar. So I think their opportunity to draft well, which they did, and rely on their kind of like the mix of young and old to help get them back into contention and beat some of those teams.
All right, let's keep the conversation going. Here's what Jordan had to say about the first-round pick and former Buckeye Joey Bosa.
They thought that he was a product from the very beginning that they had their eye on and somehow kept it quiet. We're able to take him 3rd overall in the draft, and we're so excited to get him because, again, he was their #1 overall target for the 2016 draft. And he's been a humble guy so far, doesn't like the comparisons that people have been making, not him, that other people have been making about who he may compare to in terms of an NFL career. Hates the fact that people mention his name with J.J. Watt and other players. He wants to make his own career. He wants to do his own thing, keeping his head down and being somebody who's going to be very excited to watch in 2016. And the dude's only 20 years old. It's just crazy.
It is crazy. Matt, Joey Bosa will do what in his rookie season?
Joey Bosa is going to be impressive in his rookie season. We all, as Ohio State / Cleveland Browns fans, know Joey Bosa very well, and a lot of them wanted to see him in the orange and brown here in Cleveland. But he went out to my old stomping grounds in Cleveland, and I've had some dialogue with John Pagano, their defensive coordinator, and he kind of put up a smokescreen about their interest level in him prior to the draft, but he ends up a Charger. And what he's going to do is he's going to play defensive end, and what he wants to do is get Joey Bosa singled in many situations. So, as we said, diversity in that 3-4 scheme, which San Diego runs, but singling up Joey Bosa to have him play on a guard, as J.J. Watt does, and have him play outside as an end and win versus starting right tackle.
Yeah, we'll all be rooting for him to have a monster season. All right, Jordan, what are the biggest question marks heading into the season for this team?
Well, I think the main thing for the Chargers in terms of question marks heading into the season is just getting everybody to gel together. Now, the offensive line is looking similar in terms of names and positions as the guys that were out on the field not very often. I think they only played like 3 quarters together in 2015. But those same names are back that you plugged in as starters last year, with the exception of Matt Slauson, who was a late cut by the Chicago Bears. He now provides some stability at the center position for the Chargers. Chargers also invested at the center position during the draft with a 3rd-round pick in Max Turek. So, but you also have 4 new position coaches and a new but old offensive coordinator, Ken Wisenhunt, who came back after a very successful tenure as offensive coordinator in 2013. He was part of that Chargers coaching staff that led the Bolts into the playoffs at 9-7 and won a game against the Browns' divisional rival, the Cincinnati Bengals, and almost beat the Denver Broncos in that next round of the playoffs that same year as well. So it's just getting all these new pieces to gel together. A guy like Travis Benjamin, getting him comfortable. Brandon Mebane, who was brought in from the Seattle Seahawks this past offseason. He's also another key piece on that defensive line, getting him acclimated to the type of program that John Pagano, the defensive coordinator, runs here in San Diego. But it's all about getting all these puzzle pieces together so that they are successful on September 11th, Game 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs.
All right, Jordan, thanks for the insight. Your question marks for the Chargers going into the season?
When you think about the Chargers, think about Phillip Rivers. He's not a question mark, but everything around him is a question mark. Melvin Gordon, they drafted him early last year out of Wisconsin. The returns were not good, was not that dynamic player. Now he's coming off a microfracture surgery. What will they get out of him? Danny Woodhead, very stable out of the backfield, one of the best pass-catching running backs in the NFL. But now you lose Ladarius Green, who is that speed complement to Antonio Gates. You draft Hunter Henry. Can the rookie step in and be that guy? You look at the history of Phillip Rivers throwing the ball down the field to big guys. Now he has a speed guy in Travis Benjamin, but he's not a big receiver. How does that work with the way that Phillip Rivers throws the ball? And then, of course, Keenan Allen, a very steady pro. But for me, it's can this offense score enough points to make up for the fact that on defense they have some holes, especially with the departure of Eric Weddle?
Yes, absolutely. And I think I want to see Manti Te'o. Everything was made of him as a Notre Dame product, being drafted out to San Diego. I know it's the West Coast, so we lose a little touch with some of those teams that play out there. But what type of season is he going to have? And then speaking again to John Pagano, the defensive coordinator, he's expecting a lot from Manti Te'o now with the departure of Donald Butler.
All right, we shall see Browns and Chargers matching up Week 16 here in Cleveland. Got to take a quick break.
It's a cold day, hopefully.
Yeah, we're not in San Diego. We'll be in Cleveland. But hey, no matter what, it's still football. We'll see you coming up next week. Next, Andrew Gribble stops by as we debate which positions will have the most success heading into the season. Be right back on Dawg Pound Report. Back here on the Dawg Pound Report, Matt Wilhelm stepping aside. Joining now our good buddy Andrew Gribble, the Mad Scribble, if you'd like. You can call him. Gribble and Nathan are going to break down some hot topics here as we get closer and closer to start a training camp. We're going to start with the offense here. Andrew, I want to start with you. Which position group on offense really do you feel most confident about going into training camp?
You know, this might be a little surprising because of the big names you lost at that position, but I like what the Browns are doing on the offensive line. I know Pro Bowl center Alex Mack is gone. Mitchell Schwartz, who is one of the better right tackles in the entire NFL, he's gone too. But I think the Browns have had good contingency plans in place, and that started last year with drafting Cameron Irving. Center is, even though he didn't play it all that much in college, I think it's his most natural position in the NFL. I think he's had a really good offseason. I think he's playing it with a little bit more confidence. He's going to grow into the position. I think the Browns are going to be okay there. You look at the three other spots where there wasn't turnover. Joe Thomas, one of the best in the NFL. Joel Bitonio, one of the better left guards in the NFL. John Greco, really solid at right guard. And then you have the question marks at right tackle, but the Browns have supplemented that with a lot of competition. Spencer Drango, Alvin Bailey from the Seahawks, and then Sean Coleman, third-round pick, who we've yet to see on the practice field, but he's going to add some competition. I think they're going to be okay and better suited for the power-running offense that Hugh Jackson's going to run.
So obviously, the Browns aren't so confident because they're bringing in 3 potential guys at right tackle. We haven't seen Cam Irving at center. Where are they confident? Where I'm confident, at the running back position. 14 picks, 10 undrafted free agents. Were any of them running back, Scribs?
No.
No, why? No. Because we're confident in our running backs. We've got Isaiah Crowell, who ran for 300 yards, averaged 4.5 yards a carry over the final 4 games a year ago with 3 touchdowns, rushed for over 7, the leading rusher from a year ago. You've got Duke Johnson, who caught passes for over 560 yards last year. This is a good tandem, very similar in terms of skill set diversity to Giovanni Bernard, Jeremy Hill in Cincinnati. They love these running backs, and the confidence speaks for itself from the organization, so I'm just going to back that up right there. Segura, win.
I will say,
Gosh, I'd love to see that.
I will say the backup situation on the offensive line is better than the running back situation right now. If you have an injury to Crowell or Johnson, not a lot of experience behind there. Offensive line, you've got those draft picks that could potentially be reserves. Austin Pastor filled in great.
Hearing the word potential. I got proven commodities. Let's go.
We want the two-headed monster. All right, Andrew, on defense, most confident group.
Well, I like what the Browns have on the defensive line because unlike the offensive line, not much turnover on the defensive line. I think they've got some good pieces working there. Your starters, the guys you think are going to start right now, John Hughes, a veteran, Danny Shelton coming into his second year after being a first-round pick, and also Desmond Bryant, arguably the best player on this entire defense last season, very solid off the end. And then your backups, you're looking at a lot of young potential talent, Xavier Cooper, Carl Nassib, potentially a Jamie Meter as well. All of those guys are promising. Had pretty solid rookie years last year. And when you look at the Browns' run defense, I know that the defensive line was part of the problem with it, but I don't think they were the main reason why this team struggled at stopping the run. I think they're a group you can rely on, depend upon going in 2016.
I like the D-line, I'll be honest. Right. Either the D-line for me or the outside linebackers, but I think this scheme is going to get the most out of the talent that you have there and is a deep group. But for me, it will be the outside linebackers. Paul Kruger, Super Bowl champion. We've seen him have double-digit sacks for this team. He's going to be utilized the right way. It was Ray Horton who wanted him when he signed here as a free agency. Now they're reunited. I think Nate Orchard came on very strong in the second half of last season. 3 sacks down the stretch, a forced fumble, and interception as well. And then you add in Emmanuel Ogbah, who is a physical freak. And I think this guy's going to come and be productive right away. I think they'll find creative ways to use Barkevious Mingo. And then Joe Schobert, I think, is going to be kind of a jack of all trades. I think this is a group that's got experience, it's got youth, it's got athletic prowess, and I think they're going to be unleashed in Ray Horton's defense.
Nassib and Ogbah 1 and 2 in sacks in NCAA Division I last season. They were beasts in college. Andrew, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. You can catch him on clevelandbrowns.com. Check his stuff out there. Nathan and I coming back. We're going to wrap up the show with your Twitter questions. That's next on Dawg Pound Report right here on News Channel 5. Back here on Dawg Pound Report, Hakeem Dermis, Nathan Zegura here with you. Time now to answer a couple of your Twitter questions using the hashtag AskDPR. Question 1, it comes to us from Satch Wilson. Satch, what do you got? What was the first team offensive line during OTAs?
Satch is our guy.
I love
Satch and
Satch.
Scoob, fine man. So the first team offensive line that I think as it is now that will go into training camp as the first team offensive line from left to right will be Joe Thomas, Joel Bitonio, Cam Irving, John Greco, and Alvin Bailey right now has the lead at the right tackle position. But Spencer Drango, who didn't give up a sack last year in the Big 12, which is pretty impressive with the way they throw the ball around at Baylor, he is competing, I think, hard for that spot. Sean Coleman, we haven't seen him yet as he's getting healthy, and we'll see how that goes. But right now, Alvin Bailey's the man at right tackle.
All right, so let's ask our second question from Real Eric. How are the linemen progressing under Joe Kim? By the way, he goes by Master Joe Kim out here.
Yeah, he is a bad man, an MMA specialist, taekwondo, martial artist. So what he's doing is work with the defensive line on their punches, their get-offs to be able to shed blocks, etc. And I know Danny Shelton loves it, and it's one of the things that these guys have talked about where the Browns have found a way to kind of take a skill set, add it to what they're doing, and improve their ability to perform on the field. And I know these guys are very, very high on what they're learning from Joe Kim.
You've been around this team for years. You see this team right now, just ended OTAs. What's the mood right now there in Berea?
Most positive vibe that I've been around in my time at Berea, and it starts with Hugh Jackson.
Yeah.
He demands excellence from these guys. They love playing for him. He knows how to relate to them. He motivates them. He brings the energy every day, and I think it's infectious. And right now there is a very, very positive feeling, and that's not just kind of just being around the field, etc. It's from talking to the players who are like, this is night and day from anything I've ever experienced here in Cleveland, and they believe. Now, it's going to be tested, but they believe right now, and I think that that's going to carry this team through.
I think as a fan of this team for so many years, I just like the blueprint that's happening in Berea. I just like the way things are positive and the fact that Hugh Jackson's coming in and setting his system and just is taking control. Like, there's no question marks. You're like, what do we do? No, they know what they're doing.
He's the face of the franchise now, and I think that's a very good thing right now because you don't have that superstar yet at the quarterback position, and Joe Thomas is probably your best-known player, but he's an offensive lineman. So right now, this is the Hugh Jackson show. I call it the Hugh World Order. He is setting the tone, and he does it on the practice field. When people see him out there, they're going to be very impressed.
Great insight. All right, use hashtag AskDPR next time. Maybe your question will make on the show. That'll do it for this edition of Dawg Pound Report. For Nathan, our entire crew, I'm Hakeem Dermish. Thanks for watching. See ya.
Go Cats!